This is a friendly reminder that we are live on the internet.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I would like to go ahead and call the Finance, Government Operations Committee, FGOC Committee meeting to order at this time. I am Supervisor Otto Lee, Chair of this committee, along with Vice Chair Supervisor Susan Ellenberg, and with both presents here, we do have a quorum. Also mentioned that this is our last public meeting of our county that I'm aware of. Is that right, James?
For the calendar year, I believe.
Well, the calendar year, that's what I mean. So it's very exciting to see so many folks here. Welcome. Also today is also the winter solstice, right? Which is the longest darkness of the day of the year. So looking forward, I hope that we'll get more brightness to this days in our county for the rest of the year to come. Thank you. All right, second item on the agenda is a public comment, which is, of course, the area reserved for publics to address the committee on items that's not on the agenda today. Clerk, would you please let us know how many speakers we have today for public comment?
We currently have no speakers in chambers. However, we do have one speaker on Zoom.
One speaker on Zoom. All right, I don't see anybody rushing to get your card in, so let's go to the speaker on Zoom. I believe we have 2 minutes. Let's go ahead.
Resident, you will have 2 minutes to speak. Go ahead and begin speaking.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. I wanted to address this committee to see if possibly there could be a way to finance either an investigative task force or just a task force that can take action, maybe independent of this county, that could take some sort of action or recommendation to make changes within the social service agency. My kids are being sexually abused, and I can't get anybody to do anything about it, including the social service agency. I mean, there's the issue that I have is that my former attorney is involved, and there are conflicts of interest involved. And my son, he's already confirmed that he's been sexually abused since he was 13 years old. He's been anally raped. My ex-wife was allowing somebody to anally rape him. And the other kids are also showing signs of being sexually abused. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or a social worker to determine that an evaluation or an assessment, needs to be conducted. But the county is just refusing to do it. And I mean, we already have, baby Phoenix that passed away because of negligence on the part of the county. I mean, and there are other children, there are other parents that I've connected with who have experienced the same thing when it comes to sexual abuse. And it's just completely unacceptable in this county. And I'm really hoping that this committee can put forward a motion to get some sort of task force to address these issues. Really needed this county. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
That concludes public comment.
Sure. I just would ask the caller to contact the office of District 3, and we could also follow up on this issue as well if you have any questions, follow up. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 3, which is to approve the consent calendar and changes to the committee's agenda. So first of all, Supervisor Ellenberg, I do have a following changes to the agenda to see if you will be entertained, since we have a pretty lengthy agenda today, to see how many of these items we might be able to put in consent. I'd like to add items number 4, 7, 10, 12, and 15 to consent. And item number 13 will move to the full board meeting. And I could read the items that I have here. 4 is item to receive report from probation department regarding the management audit recommendations. 7 is receive report from the Office of County Executive Internal Audit Division relating to internal controls audit of risk management. Item 7 is receive quarterly report from the Social Service Agency, Department of Aging and Adult Services regarding IHSS. Item number 12, receive quarterly report from Employee Services Agency relating to Health Path performance reports. And 15 is regarding the report from the Finance Agency relating to repayment options for the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, contribution and liability. And so I've also been informed by department staff that item 13 will need to be forwarded to the entire Board of Supervisors for the direction provided by Hewlett. And since the direction to go to the full board meeting has already been given, I would like to request that when the item does come back to the full board, that staff provide multiple potential options that combine the two options in this report of ending the contract early and procuring biogas for the 4 locations. And the potential options should balance practical costs for the reduction of emissions, eliminating natural gas usage, and minimizing biogas usage. Supervisor Ellenberg, are those acceptable to you, and do you have any other additional changes to the agenda, please?
I'm having a technical issue. Give me just 1 second.
Sure, no problem. Take your time.
Yes, those are all fine for me. I do want to just kind of make a general thank you to staff for the many really detailed and excellent reports that were included in this month's agenda. Moving them to consent, I never know if that's kind of a relief to staff or an irritation, but please know that what it generally means is that the reports are very good, answered our questions, and don't necessitate additional conversation. But I really want to say that they are noticed, they are read, and that the work is much appreciated. Regarding item 10 in particular, it's a report on in-home supportive services. I really want to call that out and express my gratitude for the work that's being done there. I know we're still working to meet a challenging state mandate with limited resources. The progress being made is really important. My staff is very interested in continuing to monitor this item, and if there's any way in which my office can be particularly useful, we'd like to play that role. I'm also interested in removing item 23 from consent to hear immediately following item 9, presuming that someone from FMC is here and available to answer questions. Can anybody let me know if someone from the Fairgrounds Management is here or on Zoom? Because if not, I would then ask to hold that item.
It does not look that we have anyone on Zoom from FMC. I'm not sure about in the audience.
I don't see anybody.
It doesn't appear that we do. My suggestion might be to then, they may have assumed because it was proposed on consent, so I would suggest that that the committee consider holding the item.
Holding, okay,
And
all right.
we can make sure that they'll be present.
So we'll do that. So then I would like to hold item 23 until January, please.
Very good, okay.
And with that, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the changes indicated.
Great. And just want to check with Cynthia, you got all the changes,
I did, thank you.
including the holding of item number 23?
And I
regarding
can
the
assure the
fairgrounds.
committee that moving items to consent is always appreciated by staff. So,
Well,
Well, sometimes they might like to show their work as well, so.
absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. No further ado, I'll second that, and let's take a vote, Cynthia.
Oh, and we do not have any members of the public who would like
I'm
to
sorry.
speak.
Yes,
Great.
that's right. We'll go ahead and open and close public hearing. Thank you. And let's go take a vote. Thank you.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
And Chairperson Lee?
Yes, as well.
The motion carries.
Great, thank you. Since we've moved so many items on the consent, I could see a little bit of movement from the audience. You're welcome to stay longer and listen to us. You don't have to leave now.
Bye-bye.
All right. All right, that being said, after item number 4 has been to consent, we have now item number 5, which is receiving a report from the Office of County Executive relating to the development of a county strategic plan. And here to present the item, I believe, is our County Exec, James Williams, and also Brian Darrow, Special Assistant to the County Exec. Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Brian Darrow with the County Exec's office. So the board had asked administration back in June to report to FGOC twice per year relating to the process for developing a county-wide strategic plan with an eye toward launching the process for that plan in January of 2025. So this is our first report to FGOC. You have the written report. I'm happy to give a high-level overview of where we are in terms of work to date on that. I'm also happy to take questions, whatever the committee would prefer.
I believe we're ready to take questions, right? As far as Ellenberg, go ahead.
Sure, happy to.
Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate that this initial report outlines some research on best practices and that you've worked to gather input from other counties as we prepare to embark on this really significant venture. I do have a few questions that I want to ask today. I also just want to quickly note, though, that the next report is scheduled to come back in June to this committee, but I suspect we'll be working to finalize next year's fiscal budget. So I would actually prefer that we hold this until August, have the second report come back in August, which I'm sure is also not going to be objectionable to you, but I think that we'll be able to give it more attention and really make sure that we'll be ready to execute beginning in January. So my first question is for you to tell me a little bit about what this kind of pre-committee looks like. I want to make clear to the public that when we talk about an internal steering committee now and some early engagement, that this is not the process itself. This is the work to create the process, which will be very broadly publicly accessible. But let me know who's on the internal committee, how many members, what kind of frequency are you expecting this group to meet and work?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we're really in the information gathering stage right now, and we have yet to put together the steering committee. What we've learned is we've kind of been focusing on process, what other counties have done in terms of setting up the process for their strategic plan. So we have noticed, we basically looked at Bay Area counties and other large counties in California as our starting point. Some counties do have a county strategic plan, and many do not. Many counties have departmental level strategic plans. That's actually true of our county as well. We don't currently have a county-wide, but we do have some of our departments with their plans. And so we're just really in the process of figuring out what's worked for these other communities. And one of the things that worked, to your point, is setting up an internal steering committee. So we do intend to do that, but we're still in the kind of information gathering and finalizing what we can learn from other communities who've gone through this process. And a piece of that is really actually wanting to not just review the documents and review what's available publicly in terms of process and what they produced, but starting to talk to a few more counties about what worked and what didn't. And I think that will also inform the steering committee. My sense at this point from what others have been successful with is that it's really helpful to have a cross-section of leaders from across the county organization. The folks who would be implementing the vision of the strategic plan really get their buy-in early. And so I think that's probably where we would be headed, but I wouldn't want to nail that down just yet.
That's totally fine, and that's something that can come back as part of August, hopefully somewhat retroactively saying we brought this group together in March or April or whatever it is, how that works out. It's so interesting to me that we have department level strategic plans. I mean, everything should flow from the board policy, board priorities. So it will be, and I imagine that there will be some tension in really trying to shift that narrative and focus and see how every department, can work toward the same goals. But in the current iteration, I certainly think that it's overall positive for our departments to have strategic plans, to understand at least internally where they're going. But I'm looking forward to really unifying this. Are we looking at any kind of community input before January? Again, input on what the process would look like before January of 2024. Nope, 25.
Of 25.
Yes.
Yeah, I think where we were headed was we were thinking of launching the community input process starting in January 2025. The community input is clearly one of the best practices from a process standpoint that other counties have demonstrated, and there's a number of different ways to do community input. Some counties did community surveys, town halls, focus groups, or, some did all of those things, some did a few of those things or one of those things. And so there's no question we want to have a broad and meaningful community input process, but we were thinking that would make sense to really roll out in the January 2025 timeframe with the with just sort of the announcement that this planning process is happening. And it does seem to take, about a year often to nail down sometimes less, but it can take up to a year from the beginning of the planning process to when you have your finalized plan. So that's something to take into consideration as well.
You're not talking about a year to gather community input or figure out what that looks
No,
like. You're talking about
and so it's an interesting point because I think we can get ahead of that some by setting up the steering committee ahead and actually like hitting the ground running in January.
that's my hope.
So in some ways, we're doing this a little differently in that we already had a preliminary introduction to strategic planning in January of this year, and the board set their policy priorities. So I think we're a little ahead of the curve on that, but I think having the community input all come at when you sort of announce that we're doing this planning, we would have new board members, and then we can really hit the ground running and probably have a more accelerated finalization of the plan than other counties did because we've done that pre-work.
Got it. I think that's important. And it's also valuable since we are talking about it publicly more than a year before the process starts for all of these, the various different groups and stakeholders that we know we will want to engage, our labor partners, certainly first and foremost, our CBOs, business associations, neighborhood groups, representatives from other levels of government that interact with our county programs and services, disability rights advocates, LGBTQ and older adult representation, and for whoever I've said, I'm sure I've left out as many groups, but we really do have such a wide array, and I think that actually speaks so well to the value of county government across all of these groups. I just want to make sure that nobody is hearing that we are moving ahead in advance of any of this participation. We are really just kind of creating the foundation right now. So thank you for all of that, Brian, and I really look forward to hearing at the end of the summer how much progress has been made.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to move approval, receipt of the report.
And now second, Cynthia, do you have any speakers?
We currently do not have any speakers in chambers or on Zoom.
All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Yeah, so Brian, looking at the report here, very excited about the best practices research of other counties. I think you've been hearing from what I've been saying for the last 3 years that I'm no shame of copying good practices and best practices from our neighboring counties. My only thing I'm going to ask too is, besides counties, I would ask the city to look at some of the more successful, even cities as well, some of the practices, whether it's San Jose or where I came from, Sunnyvale, which has a very unique long-term 20-year strategic planning process, which has, and it's been recognized worldwide, and there are like folks from Tokyo, from Japan, actually flew in to learn how Sunnyvale does things. So I think there might be some nuggets that you could take away as well from those jurisdictions as well. So just don't limit your site just on counties.
We can certainly do that.
Great,
Yes.
thank you. All right, and that's all I have. So if no further comments, let's take a vote.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg
Yes.
and Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well, thank you. And then moving to item number 6, which I believe is also our county executive, but also with Greg Ituria, our county budget director. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Greg Ituria, County Budget Director. And in your packet is a report, a request from the board to come back to this meeting with a list of initiatives that are underway for cost reduction or revenue improvement initiatives, and we've got those listed separately and concurrently. County departments are working on a great number of options and proposals for operational or other changes to provide budgetary savings to help the board balance the budget in this next budget cycle. They'll be numerous and grand in dollar amounts, and I know in the report these look small compared to the size of the deficit, but this is what is underway specifically. Separate from that, a number of options and proposals are being developed for consideration in the upcoming budget cycle, and certainly have updates on that as time passes. Other than that, if there are questions of the committee for myself or James, we're certainly glad to have the conversation.
Thank you very much, Greg. I suppose, Allenberg, do you have any questions or comments on this one?
Lots.
Great.
Thank you,
for
Greg.
it.
Thanks to you and your department for working on this ahead of what I know is going to be a really tough series of conversations around mid-year. In addition to the countywide cost reduction efforts that are outlined in the report, I'm curious whether there's any additional work that we're doing with Procure America. I know we've seen some really positive cost reductions happen in work they've done with some of our departments already. Is there ongoing work?
Myself, I'm not too sure, where that's at. I don't know if James has an idea, if we might have someone else here.
Yeah, I believe they're doing some work with TSS. So
They
in addition,
completed that. They completed the TSS and showed significant ongoing savings. And I know Greta met with them a couple of months ago, or maybe just a month ago, and there was at least conversation around having them engage in more department analysis.
well, we can follow up on that. I know that they've done work with TSS.
Yeah.
What separate from this, of course, are county-wide service departments like TSS, FAF, and others have departmental reduction targets, many of which involve identifying county-wide efforts, but that are within their service provision. So that's not shown on here, but those are also county-wide efforts.
Right. And I'm not here to advertise for Procure America. I just know that they've done good work for us in that department, and if that kind of external support from them or any other vendor would be helpful for departments to really look at increasing efficiency, operating in as streamlined a way as possible with the least impact, of course, on our workforce and services. I just encourage us to keep our eyes open for those opportunities and those partnerships.
Absolutely.
And I do realize that these efforts are just a small piece in the context of the overall budget reduction targets, and I'm looking forward would be a little too rosy, but anticipating hearing more in January regarding an updated year-end general fund projection and revenue forecasts. In January, I think we've talked about this before, but I just want to make sure that it's on the record as a formal request, that I want this committee to receive in January a list of any board referrals that have been approved, that will have been approved up until January in this fiscal year, that carry budget implications, including, but certainly not limited to, addition of staff positions, capital investments, or program expansions. I know that many of those referrals have been directed to be considered during the mid-year budget conversations, but this committee should review and discuss that list ahead of those full board conversations, so that we're all just clear and have a little bit more time to digest possible implications of work that wasn't budgeted for in our 2023-2024 fiscal year budget. So that would be a formal motion as part of the update regarding the FY 2023-2024 budget that's presented in January. James, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I think we can certainly come with some preliminary information for that FGOC meeting. We're targeting the mid-year itself for all of that comprehensive information, including the updated financial projections and all of that accumulated information. Given the kind of timelines involved, we won't have the same level of information by the time of publication of the committee agenda versus the actual mid-year. So as long as the committee recognizes that there may be a difference between what's presented at the mid-January FGOC meeting and at the February board meeting.
If it's still a work in progress, I understand that, that's fine, but I still want, with whatever is available, the opportunity to have a public committee conversation with that in advance of the mid-year budget, just because I think there's really going to be a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to recognize that that'll be information as of around January 10th,
Got it.
as opposed to the early February information.
Perfect. That's fine. And I want to add, before I conclude the motion, I want to make one other request, not related to the budget, but directed to the committee chair as a request to add to next year's work plan. In 2019, I was very proud to introduce the county's first ever children's budget that was dedicated to showcasing the investments that we're making in support of children and families. And over the last few years, this budget is evolving in terms of its efficacy and potential to really operationalize. And I'm very interested in seeing that it becomes a useful tool for us when we are making decisions about future investments. The Office of Children and Families Policy, in collaboration with OBA, is collecting more detailed programmatic information from departments during the process of updating the children's budget. Additional information such as program types, program focus areas, current populations served, and contractor information, I think is going to be really helpful to inform future policies and help identify funding gaps and overlapping contracts and services, which of course leads to more productive partnerships, both across county departments and with our external partners. So I would request of the committee chair that the 2024 work plan includes a quarterly status update on the children's budget, including the progress of this information gathering effort. I would ask for a second on both components of that motion.
Yes, I'll go ahead and second both of those. And
Thank
I'll
you
go
very
and
much.
also open a public hearing. Do we have any public speaking on this item?
We currently do not have any speakers in chambers or on Zoom.
Okay, go ahead and close the public hearing. Regarding the cost savings and these revenue ideas here, Greg, I would say, yeah, those listed there for potential cost savings of potentially 33 million is very exciting. Have there been any efforts or meeting being taken place to solicit these type of ideas from our 20-odd thousand employees, since they work here every day? And I figure many of them probably have some type of idea of where they think savings could be had, especially in their own department or areas that they work on.
Yeah, there is at the department level. I can't speak to at each department. I know in our meetings with department heads, we've encouraged, reaching out and soliciting ideas, not just from employees, but from community-based organizations or other partners that we operationalize with, and to get ideas. So I know, that there's that push, but as far as each specific department, where they're at, I'm not sure.
And departments have done different things, but there has been outreach, and I can also share that I have raised it in all my meetings with labor organizations affirmatively and requested that folks bring forward ideas as well, and in other public forums where I've been talking about the budget.
So are these ideas that came out, any of these came from our employees?
These categories came from discussions within the county executive's office. These are these kind of broad categories. And I just, I want to name that, these are really require kind of concerted effort to achieve these targets. We have not historically had a strong practice, as the committee knows, of keeping our fees up with cost recovery. And so that's going to require some significant adjustments to get back to where we should have been, because in some cases it's been many, many years since a fee was last adjusted. So it's fallen way behind cost recovery, which means the general fund is subsidizing that function. So we will be bringing forward a number of significant fee adjustments to the board for approval that in other times the board, may have looked at those kind of individually as not significant, but collectively they're very significant. And the failure to achieve cost recovery in those areas does functionally mean the safety net is subsidizing those activities. So that's one category. The health insurance one is really one around cost containment and efforts to look at what can be done there. There have been past efforts in that vein that have run into challenges because of, we had specific providers written into labor contracts, for example. And so we're in a better place now to tackle some of that. But as you're probably aware, there are very significant rate increases coming out of the pandemic from our insurance providers, and those are a significant general fund impact. So that's kind of that category. The vendor discount savings is an idea that came out of procurement back in 2020. That was a very successful initiative. That was a countywide effort to provide 1 to 2 year contract extensions with vendors in exchange for reductions. It worked out quite well in 2020, so we're renewing that. There'll be an item coming to the board in January to renew that program, and we're hopeful about that. But that lets departments then have the ability to reach out to vendors and get those negotiated rate reductions in exchange for an extra year term or 2 years. And then the phone initiative is one that actually came out from employees within TSS and conversations in the leadership from TSS, identifying that as just in the wake of the pandemic, not systems that we utilized the same way. Still needed in certain parts of the county, but in a building like this, hardly any of us are using our desk phones with frequency anymore. So those are where those specific ones came from. Most activity happens at the departmental level, including countywide activities, like I said earlier, that are supported by departments that provide countywide services. And so we expect to see most things in departments and their proposals. But these are kind of broader, bigger picture items.
Great, thank you. So I'm actually doing a similar thing in my own personal life. And one of the things I'm noticing is a lot of times we subscribe to things that we don't use.
Right.
Whether it's like physical magazines or in many cases with the licenses and software and apps that we have signed up for who knows when, that turns out we're not using them. So I would imagine if that's happened to individuals, I imagine that's certainly happening in the scale of our county as well. So I just want to make sure if we could also add that to the
That is
motion.
part of it. Yeah, no, that's part of
Those
that
are review.
initiative.
Okay, good.
A specific part of that initiative is they're looking at utilization of licenses and disconnecting those where there has not been actual utilization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's being audited and looked at countywide by TSS.
Great, thank you. Is there some type, I'm not so sure, called a bounty program that we actually provide like a suggestion box for employees so that if they come up with some great ideas that save the county substantial amount of money, that there's some incentive, like a small cash reward of some sort, or?
There isn't such a program. It's complicated because there are a lot of legal rules around that type of structure in the government sector. But it's something we can look at. It would be very hard to do anything that would be more than nominal because of some of those rules. So.
Sure, I don't think the employees is there for like the like expecting thousands of dollars of bounties, but I think it's more of a way of trying to help the county. I certainly have seen those programs used in the federal government, in the Navy, for example. They have a fraud and waste abuse hotline. Plus, there's a program where individuals that come up with these ideas would get a small stipend of some sort. And of course, they get recognized for these great ideas as well and get publicized. So I think these are probably important initiatives that we could also tap in our employees' collective wisdom to come up with ways to save money instead of just coming from us at the top level. So if we could also incorporate that in the motion, I really appreciate it.
That's fine.
Okay, all right. If no further comments, let's take a vote.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg
Yes.
and Chairperson Lee.
Yes as well. Thank you, Greg. So moving to item number 8. So 7 was in consent. So item number 8 is report from the Office of County Executive, Internal Audit Division relating to the internal controls audit of Valley Health Plan broker contracting and related fiscal activities. And I believe to present this item today, we have Barbara Hartman from our internal auditor, and also Laura Rosas. Hi, Laura, from our office as well. And so maybe you could introduce the rest of our team here. Thank you, Laura.
Hi, good afternoon, supervisors. I'm Robin Rose. I'm
Robin.
the Internal Audit Manager
Thank you, Robin.
with the Internal Audit Division. And with me, as you mentioned, is Barbara Hartman, who was the auditor in charge for this engagement, along with Hugo Lopez, who is the supervising internal auditor. We do have a brief presentation if you're willing to listen on the topic and open for comment.
Sure. Supervisor Dunn, would you like to hear the report?
To your discretion.
Okay, I think we all have read it, but you could go through it briefly, and
Okay.
that would be great. And we can
Thank
move
you.
it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I will be presenting on our internal audit report, VHP Internal Controls Audit of Broker Contracting and Related Fiscal Activities. That is dated October 31st, 2023. Next slide, please. The agenda topics, or what I'll be going over, is the program background, the objective and scope, findings and recommendation summary, and notable accomplishments. Next slide, please. Program background. VHP partners with local licensed brokers to help enroll individuals and families into a plan. Some functional responsibilities include streamlining the broker payment process by using a direct payment code, providing brokers with tools and information needed to do business with them, enrolling and billing new and renewing members, calculating and paying broker commission and bonus payments that are paid quarterly. Next slide. The objective of the audit was initially a management request to see how the new direct payment code was working. The objectives of the audits were as follows: operating effectiveness of the broker contracting process, adequacy of direct payment code process and related fiscal activities, accuracy of broker commission and bonus payments according to contract terms. Next slide, please. The audit scope included operations from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023, and was limited to reviewing a sample of broker commission and bonus payments. This included reviewing broker contracts, verifying broker licensing for current insurance and covered California licensing, recalculating broker commission and bonus payments, and verifying brokers were paid on a timely basis and for the correct amount. Next slide, please. There were a total of 5 findings and 7 recommendations. Management agrees with the recommendations. Finding 1, database used for broker payments is outdated. We recommended the department evaluate a new database. They are currently working on implementing a new database for the broker payments. Next slide, please. Finding 2, front end of the database is not frequently backed up. In the past, the database was backed up quarterly. Due to the database reaching its size limit and ability to process data, we recommended the database be backed up more often. We also recommended the department develop a formalized policies and procedures for backup and restoration of the broker database. Next slide, please. Finding 3, the database disaster recovery plan needs updating. We recommended the department incorporate the system used for broker payments and data into the disaster recovery plan. The following areas should be addressed: prevention, mitigation, preparedness, training, response, and recovery of data. Next slide, please. Finding 4, VHP's policies and procedures were not comprehensive or aligned with other sources. We recommended the internal policies related to agent broker record, appointment, and compensation reference the external broker webpage for the most current tiers and rates, so the 2 policies align with each other. The broker webpage is considered the most current policy related to payment tiers and rates to brokers. Next slide, please. The last finding was the broker payment file was uploaded incorrectly into the SAP financial system. The prior quarter's data was uploaded instead of the current quarter. The error was corrected, but not before the incorrect payment amounts were paid to brokers. The department has collected on overpayments and paid out the difference for underpayments. We recommended the department establish responsibilities for reviewing data uploads before uploading to SAP to prevent errors. Next slide, please. Some notable accomplishments by VHP included VHP implemented Epic's Tapestry system in March of 2023. The system provides coordination between the hospitals and clinics. Next, at the request of Covered California, VHP expanded their coverage area into Region 9, effective January 1st, 2022. It comprised of the San Benito, Monterey, and Santa Cruz counties. The Sales and Broker Relations team hosted an annual virtual broker recognition event in September 2023. Next slide, please. We would like to thank Valley Health Plan team for walking us through the process, providing supporting documentation, and answering questions during this engagement. Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you very much. And first, do we have any public speaker on this item?
We do not.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Yes, Vice Ellenberg?
Thanks. I want to just take a minute to acknowledge the importance of these efforts to enroll eligible members of our community. I know the overall dollar amounts that we're talking about here aren't significant, but really the return is substantial when members of our community are enrolled in coverage and are receiving the services they need, certainly as opposed to the far more costly and less effective visits to the emergency room. I share the concerns that you report out on regarding data management and a tracking system that is approaching obsolescence and risk of failure. Those are scary words to read. I'm interested in any further details on how, probably looking to the county exec, how it's being addressed, and really just underscoring the importance of having a really robust system of oversight in place, particularly related to billing and payments within our health and hospital system.
I'll ask Laura Rosas to address your questions.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Ellenberg. So first, I want to make it really clear that the Access database is completely separate from all our other systems. It is not related to our claims payment system or any of our, now that we're all on Epic, it doesn't have anything to do with Epic. It is a completely separate database. It is hosted within the county network on county servers. So there is no potential security threat related to this database. It is an Access database. It is now on SQL with Access being the front end. And we're working with TSS in the quarter one to move to Dynamics. There's a significant amount of work to move the database to Dynamics, but we will get a lot of gains from it, including being able to pay our brokers more frequently on a monthly basis instead of a quarterly basis. The uploaded file was, I believe, a one-time event. It was human error where the wrong file was uploaded and the payment went out. We are changing that mechanism so that there is a time delay there for review of accuracy going forward. So we don't anticipate that occurring again.
How long is that delay, and will that impact time of payment?
I don't believe so. So right now it's a 2-day delay or a day and a half. We're going to push it to 3 days and just make sure that we're actually really making sure it's being reviewed. And that means just making sure that staff understand that they need to take a look at it, review it against what it should be before going forward.
What do you think our potential upside is in terms of how many more people are there who would be eligible to enroll that aren't already? Is it ongoing because we always have new people coming to the community, or do you feel like at some point we'll be saturated?
So this is a covered, brokers only are related to Covered California. It's not related to any other part of our business. It is a Covered California only issue. The information in this database is only our brokers that work with us to sell Covered California. That's a large mechanism for how Covered California actually is distributed throughout the state. So basically a broker sits down with someone and says, well, you can, VHP has a great Cover California product, and for whatever reason, then they will enroll them. And so what's in this database is no PHI, no patient information. It's just the PII related to the brokers, their name, their address, their license
I
number.
understand that part, but what I didn't realize, and thank you for saying it so clearly, is that they are only enrolling Covered California. I thought that it was broader Medi-Cal.
No, Medi-Cal
as well.
is delegated to us through Santa Clara Family Health Plan.
Right, I knew that, but didn't put it all together. Great. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Yes, first of all, yeah, just really glad to see that after the audit that the VHP able to agree to all of the 5 findings and 7 recommendations, so makes it real easy to improve and move forward. So thank you for the good work on auditing and these recommendations to be adopted. On the recommendations, one thing I would like to ask is if VHP administration report back to this committee in 3 months with an update on the findings 1, 2, and 3, which are listed as high and medium priority, and within 6 months with an update on the findings 4 and 5, which are listed as low priority. Would that work?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor. We can do that.
Okay, great, thank you. And if I could ask for a motion and incorporate these?
So moved.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg
Yes.
and Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along here, we are moving to item number 9, receiving report from the Facilities and Fleet Department relating to county fleet, county assigned take-home vehicles and policy. And I believe today we have David Worthington, our fleet manager from the Facilities and Fleet Department, along with Annie Walker, our deputy director. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Glad to be here. David Worthington, Facilities and Fleet Manager.
Andy Walker, Deputy Director, Facilities and Fleet.
Okay, welcome. Yes, do you have anything to add to the report, or we could just ask questions?
Nothing to add to the report and open to any questions you have.
Okay, very good. Supervisor Ellenberg, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the detailed report. It was interesting to see the information, not only about how we're maximizing our current resources, including more than 2,200 vehicles and another 300 plus pieces of equipment, but also certainly planning for the transition to more electric-powered vehicles and the necessary infrastructure to support them. Something that the report taught me that I really wasn't aware of was that we're generating revenue with the maintenance and fueling services from external customers like VTA. So that was just an interesting point of information. And as we continue to invest in the next generation of technology, I hope that we'll continue to keep in mind not only our own operations, but further opportunities to generate outside revenue and provide benefits to the communities, particularly in regard to charging infrastructure and mobile service that I know are going to be necessary to conduct operations in rural areas of the county. Can you? It's really a comment, but wondering if you want to reflect anything particularly around potential revenue sources as we expand the electrification and the necessary charging support.
I'm glad you brought up the revenue sources because when we bring in outside agencies and do work for them, it actually lowers the total cost of ownership for the county.
Indeed.
Because it takes our administrative costs and distributes it over a greater number of work hours or parts distribution. It lowers our rates to our internal customers, and it's something that we continue to look at. We do have an opportunity in the future possibly to bring back in some work for setting up patrol vehicles for other cities. That generates quite a bit of revenue for the county and offsets our costs because the equipment, the vehicles are more expensive than typical vehicles. So we do look at that. We're also engaged at a high level in initial conversations with the City of San Jose, City of Santa Clara, and VTA in regards to what their plans are for electric infrastructure and hydrogen fuel station infrastructure, to look at locations that they're looking at, as well as how that would fit into the county's needs and sharing infrastructure and/or generating revenue that way as well. The broad impacts of current regulations and also the need to transition to zero emissions vehicles needs to be a team effort, and that team extends beyond the county.
I think that's fantastic, and certainly we don't want redundancy in anywhere there are cost-sharing opportunities. I think that's excellent. What kind of vehicles use hydrogen cell, and is that a readily available type of charging mechanism as well?
Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, they use similar to compressed natural gas. The hydrogen's compressed, stored in carbon fiber tanks on the vehicles. We currently have Toyota Mirais in the county fleet that are hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. We're looking more towards the medium and heavy-duty vehicles because it adds an opportunity, if the infrastructure is in place regionally, for the range of those vehicles to meet county operations. When we're looking at the zero emissions battery electric trucks, we have some range and duty cycle issues of what's currently available in the marketplace. And so we're looking very closely at what we can do to not impact county operations significantly with range issues of the vehicles that are currently available.
Oh, got it. So the hydrogen fuel cells have a longer range as a trade-off. They're not zero emission.
They are zero emissions.
They are zero.
The only thing a hydrogen fuel cell car has is a pipe out of the back that emits water vapor. It's actually very interesting to watch, and I've watched some of Toyota's engineers actually drink the water that came out of the pipe. So they attest that it's very safe. I don't know if I would do that, but they did.
This is one of the many reasons I love my job and literally learn multiple things every day. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, and I certainly do agree that the water is very safe. I'm not worried about the water coming out. I'm more worried about the tailpipe and who has crawled into it the night before. So, in any case, yes, so great report, and really excited to see all the green initiative we're doing with our vehicles, because as we all know that this mobile source of greenhouse gases is the number one source, especially in the summer months, of what we're getting. And so as a county, I think we have a responsibility to kind of showcase what we can do, because a lot of times people can't move toward the EV, for example, or hydrogen fuel cell. Partly is really the cost, right? The upfront cost is quite a bit higher, even though they're coming down. And I'm seeing that not just Tesla, but many of the car companies are coming to marketplaces, making it more affordable. So I'm hoping that all that actually will potentially be saving for the county when we retire our older fossil fuel type vehicles to change into at least hybrid, if not full EV. I think that's the goal of all this, correct? Right. I see you nodding, so just make sure for the record they can hear you. Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Right. So just talk a little bit by myself. I have put on solar panels on top of my roof. Actually, at second set this summer. Put in batteries. Right, so that I'm charging my batteries, so that when I have my EVs that I drive, those get charged up usually, once I get home, I charge them at night from the batteries, and the next morning, when I come to work, I am driving off the energy that was collected from the roof the night before. Right, that's, I think, is one of the zero emissions that we're all trying to accomplish. And I mentioned that because this is not 10 or 20 years from now. I'm saying this is something I've been doing for the last 4 years. The technology is already there. The question is, do you have the will and the resources to implement something like that? So looking at what we're doing here, I think it's great. A couple of things I would ask is to look at the use of batteries storage, because obviously we are having this new NEMS rate with PG&E, where if you collected the energy and having this going back to the grid, the amount of dollars we get back from PG&E is practically nil, is very, very minimal now. So I think it is part of the reason is they really want folks to have energy to have our own storage, so they don't store it for us. So I would love to see if we could look into that for our fleet to make sure that we have that type of battery storage being more available, number one. Number two is the charging infrastructure, as mentioned, is so crucial and critical to make sure they are available, easy for our vehicles to get charged up. And that reminds me of our parks, of how many of our county parks that we have throughout the region. With solar panels, with batteries, I certainly think there are opportunities for us to potentially also put more charging stations on these further out locations so that we don't want folks to be stranded, especially our vehicles, but certainly for the public as well, and feel like they have to take a fossil fuel vehicle to visit our parks. So I just want to make those points clear, something that we could look forward in terms of our fleet investment in the future. Those are a couple of areas I want to make sure that we don't forget.
Not a problem. We have been looking into both of those. The parks, county parks, is actually being very progressive. We have a grant-funded program that we're hoping to put in place this coming calendar year with an EV truck, solar charging station, and a trailer so the charging station can be moved throughout the county parks. And the vehicle that tows the trailer is the electric truck. So it's a symbiotic relationship through the entire process. So it will be one of our pilot programs to see how well that type of system would work, because the parks are beautiful. They're typically in remote locations, and charging infrastructure
Exactly.
and electricity is very difficult to get into those locations.
Yep. Good. That's great. That's exactly what I was worried about, and thank you for having the foresight to look into that already. So let's full speed ahead on that one. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
So moved, the
And,
receipt of the report. I don't think
okay.
there was additional direction.
And second with the comments as incorporated, and please vote.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving along to item number 11, is the report from the ESA Employee Services Agency relating to recruitment and classification of performance metrics. I believe we have HR Director Anita Asher today. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Anita Asher, HR Director. I don't have a presentation. I'm open to questions.
Sure, that's fine. We've looked at the report. Yes, as well as Ellenberg. You have any questions you would like to ask?
Sure. Thank you, Anita. Thank you for the report. I know there's so much work to do in this department around really improving our hiring practices, but I want to pick out that 90-day timeline from requisition to referral. It seems like an extraordinarily long period of time and not differentiated between types of positions. I assume some recruiting processes are more complicated than others. Is there a reason that it has to be 90 days?
That's correct. There are some recruitments that are more complicated than others. Generally, the 90 days is due to some of the requirements in the merit system rules regarding to posting timelines and ranking of candidates. And we have to have testing processes and review job analyses for some of those recruitments. We are reviewing the merit system rules under James' direction to see if we can streamline the processes and make them more timely.
I think we have to, because it to me is a very, I won't say backwards, but kind of misaligned system where we are devoting significant amount of time to lists and bureaucracy and organization, and then meanwhile losing good employees, good potential employees over that. And that's not the time to hire. That 3 months is just the time to referral. So I really support being much more pragmatic and efficient around that timing. I'm also interested in seeing more granular data, not just county-wide metrics. I think that department-level data could really provide valuable insights and opportunities to identify areas for improvement and really also highlight where we're seeing success. Is there feedback from other county departments included in the ESA performance evaluation? Thinking that input from department heads and hiring managers could really provide valuable insight, especially in conjunction with department-specific metrics.
Yes, we do an annual survey with our hiring managers and departments, and then evaluate that and make updates.
What kind of updates?
In the recent past, there was increased interest in knowing how the classification process worked, so we included that in training, and we updated information on how departments may request classification studies and also what is entailed in a classification study. We've also provided training regarding recruitment at the request of departments, and also provided primers to departments in their internal meetings, so the hiring managers have an opportunity to ask questions of my staff and to learn more about the process and the intricacies.
Is it correct that classification studies are still being tracked in an Excel spreadsheet that has to be manually updated?
Yes, that's correct. It's a SharePoint site.
Are we working on changing that?
Yes. We evaluated a vendor recently.
And are you talking about the case management system? The board approved funding for a case management system in 2020, but apparently a pilot wasn't successful, and the department is evaluating next steps.
That's correct. The pilot was more cumbersome than the Excel system. So what we want to do is to review two options, to review with TSS if there's an option to automate the SharePoint system, and also review to see if there's case management systems that deal specifically with classification work. Most of those are geared to the private sector, and I'm not sure if they would.
And how are we engaging our labor partners and leadership in this? I know they've multiple times over years expressed concerns with the timeline to complete classification studies.
With SEIU and SEMA, HR staff meets with them monthly on the classification process, so they have an update on where we are with the specific classifications in their bargaining units. We also have check-ins related to the contract language related to classification.
Are there strategic goals so that we can, I feel like meetings can really go on ad infinitum. Are there metrics to say we will update to X, we will improve this system by this date?
Yes, we have internal updates related to the classification window. The contract obligation is to post them in a year. Our internal metric is significantly earlier than that.
Let me just ask you one other question, and then I'll turn to James Williams. The employee exit survey has a pretty low response rate of 20%, and the report notes that no conclusions can be definitively drawn from the data. Are those done at a department level? Do folks that are leaving get that exit survey through a central ESA, or do they get that from their manager or someone in their department?
It's central ESA, and it's sent out as part of the exit.
And do the departments get access to the information as to why people from their departments are leaving?
Yes, when they request it.
When they're requested. So it's not. So over a year, for example, unless a department asks for an exit survey information from a particular person, they don't get kind of an annual, you lost 20 people this year, this is overall why they left?
No.
Nothing like that. The three biggest reasons that people are giving are very, very broad: work environment, dissatisfaction with supervisor, and dissatisfaction with agency leadership. With categories that are that broad and not really drilling down to department level, I feel like it's hard to learn and improve from those. James, I see that your light's on, so I'll hear from you before I ask you a question, because maybe you'll answer it preemptively.
Oh, no, I turned my light on earlier to give you an update on the merit system process, but I can say a few things on this. You know, the response rate is so low that I don't believe this data is very useful.
That's what the report said.
Yeah, it's not statistically valid. So, you know, we need to look at different approaches to try to either get a much higher response rate or take an approach that might have some random sampling that has statistical validity of reaching out to people who've separated from county employment in the last X years, because otherwise you can't candidly interpret anything from these categories. So that's one factor. In terms of the classification work and the recruitment timeline questions, the merit system committee process so far, I think, is headed in a very positive direction. We actually had a first batch of items clear our joint committee with SEIU, and so we'll be moving to other unions in conversation with them around those changes and working on kind of the next set of things. But I feel like that process is moving in a very positive direction right now and has some potential to really change how the process is done in the county in a pretty significant way if we can get those through. And of course, we have to have conversations with all of the county's labor unions as part of that effort. But I will say that there is a pretty significant difference between the kind of the county-wide classifications, which are pretty much only represented by SEIU and SEMA, and department-specific classifications that tend to be a series of classifications that are one specific profession, that are within one specific department, that often have their own recruitment process, have their own kind of internal classification structure, and often, not in all cases, but often tend to have a certain licensure or requirement or something else that's unique to a specific kind of career
Are those
series.
systems more efficient and faster?
It completely depends. So, for example, in the peace officer context, it's actually a slow process because of all the other requirements, but it's a very different, distinct, defined process, right, with a whole series of things, some of which are administered at the ESA level, others at the departmental level, including extensive backgrounding process and other things, right, that are unique to there. Others are more
Tough example.
Well, but it's it's a decent number of our employees, right? Or nurses, for instance, where there's a whole pathway process pipeline versus, say, some of the other professional positions, like, for example, attorneys, which tend to have a more streamlined hiring process because the credential is more of a yes or no, right? A member of the bar, and the review process isn't exam-based. So those look different in different departments, and then there are these county-wide classifications that are shared across departments where the process is necessarily different because departments have to pull from shared lists and employees have the opportunity to move between departments, which is part of the whole transfer line process as well. So there are a lot of nuances, and so when you asked for kind of department-level data, I think that's a piece of things, but I actually think a big piece of things is more kind of the types of classifications even than departments per se. Obviously, some departments have more percentage of their workforce that's in certain categories than others, but the type of classification series that's at issue dictates more of the differences between the process.
Got it. Thank you. Another piece of data that would be interesting to me is to know from folks who do apply, when they ultimately get an offer, what percentage are telling us that they've already accepted another job or they're not interested anymore. That would give us a good sense of how we're being penalized by the amount of time that we take. Do we track that?
Not at this time.
Do you think that would be helpful for us to track, to make the case either way, that we are or are not losing people?
Yes.
Right.
It's certainly something that's anecdotally talked about a lot, so I think it'd be helpful just to have some data if we could get it.
Yeah, I would like to request that we do start tracking that so that we have more specific information at our fingertips when we are making a case for the need for a shorter turnaround time.
And we'll have to figure out the best way because, you know, the job offers are made by the hiring managers and departments, not centrally. So they would be the ones who would
But do they
the-
report back that we offered this person a job, but they already took another job?
Not necessarily, because let's say they get a list of eligible employees.
Uh-huh.
We would never necessarily know that the first 3 people they wanted to hire off that list declined if they hired person number 5, right? So right now, that's not centrally tracked. If they made an offer to somebody that was then rejected and the reason why, we can work on a process to make departments provide that information centrally.
Great, thank you. And the other side of that, of course, is improving our communication with prospective employees. I know there are new AI apps and systems for city permitting that will let you know exactly where your permit is in the process, what the next step is. Something that we should be thinking about on the prospective employee side also is something that they can check to see where they are, what the timing is likely to be, so that they can determine if it's worth waiting or not, too, among other things.
Yes, I think that it would be very helpful for candidates to know where they are in the process. And again, we'll have to figure out kind of how to blend. That's easier in certain for certain classifications than others, right? And how to get the information's needed from the department piece of things, as opposed to just the central piece of things. So it's easier in a classification where there's a centrally administered, for example, test, right? And there's specific testing dates administered by ESA. Those are kind of knowable, specific things. But for others where there's kind of more back and forth, we'll have to come up with the right type of system that can get the inputs from both the department and ESA.
Right. I think first we've got to get a new ESA director.
And that recruitment is out.
To oversee all of this. Excellent. Good. Thank you. Thank you as well, Anita.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have we opened the public hearing yet?
We have not. However,
Yeah.
we don't have any speakers.
We don't have any speakers. Okay, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I know we talked about not able to draw a decisive conclusion because of the number of exit interviews. The response rate was only 20%. Let me ask, first off, is there any reason why we can't incentivize with something nominal like a $20 gift card or coffee card or something like that for those who return the surveys, James?
We can look into kind of what we could do that would make sense and what the cost would be. I mean, we have thousands of employees who separate employment every year, so I don't think I would recommend a $20 gift card, but we can look into different options.
I mean, I think the value of what you're able to get in terms of the survey versus the cost, I think it speaks for itself. I think it's whatever
I mean,
comments
maybe
we
if it
get,
was
we're more
more-
than worth $20 by a mile.
Yeah, I think it depends on the survey instrument and what we're gathering, and if it's kind of a, well, what I know that in the corporate sector, those types of things are typically done in the context of a kind of statistically valid sampling approach. So I think if we shifted to that kind of a model, that might be a good way of ensuring that we're getting the appropriate sampling data.
Because it is Okay, so it is a practice that we have to do a exit interview for individuals who leave the county, right? That's part of the process.
That is part of our process now. It wasn't historically. When did the exit survey start?
2019? I'll have to look it up. I think it was 2019.
Yeah, so it's a relatively newer part of the process.
Right, so if there's actually a exit interview, I would imagine the survey would be conducted about the similar time when that interview is being taken place, or while they're waiting for the interview, they could actually get a survey filled out. I don't know, I'm just thinking some process to incorporate that as part of the exit interview so that actually gets done.
Some departments do exit interviews individually with their staff, but there was concern whether the employee who was leaving would be candid with their department. And so the exit survey goes out about 60 days after they leave employment and has a central collection so that we can remove data that we can collect the data in aggregate.
Yeah, I think 60 days is just way too long.
Sorry, why would we wait 2 months to send out an exit survey? People have moved on with their lives. I think I would guess or suppose that if we send them out, within the week, that we're more likely to get a higher response. What's the reason for 60 days?
We can look at the timeline and take a look at what a shorter timeline would look like. I don't know the reason for the 60 days. So
Okay,
I don't know.
and I think that's that's a very important question. I think that might itself explains why the return rate's so low.
Right, Anita, can you answer that? Is there
I
a
don't know.
strategy behind 60 days?
I don't know the exact 60 days. There is a delay in the data for the separation where it has to be entered into the system and then reported out. So it's generally not available immediately.
We send people their final checks, right?
Correct.
Could it go with their final check?
I will look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's why it's important to ask these questions. I think there's the way, the worst thing people could tell to me is like, we're doing it because this is the way we've been doing it. And it sounds like this is one of those situations that, yeah, it's a new process, but still, it's something that is, it's like 6 days the way it's always been. And when you see the percentage coming back as low as it is, 1 out of 5, that certainly is not helpful based on the statistical lack of data. In terms of the actual information asked, the highest ranked was work environment, right, of everything that people have issues with. Do we delve into any further what specific work environment issues they talk about? Is it like their desk, their office space, or the people that they work with? Or is it just one of those boxes they just check and we don't know any further details on that?
Not in that specific question, but we do have a free form section where they can fill out additional information.
Okay. It's that the fact that we have identified what those issues are, and as we always say, our people working with us is our most invaluable assets for our county. So a bigger question I just want to have is what type of support are we giving these departments to help maintain morale and employee satisfaction? As we know, recruitment and training obviously takes a lot of time and resources. We talked about the amount of time it takes to get somebody into the system. So if you recall, when this committee first heard this report, Supervisor Chavez, who was on the committee at the time, asked the administration to consider engaging an external organization to administer the exit interviews process, hinting that we might get a better response rate, right, if the exit interviews were conducted by an external entity that's independent. What factors did the department consider in determining the exit interviews should still be administered by internal staff at this point?
Well, hi.
Hi,
Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead, Megan.
I'm going to jump in.
Yes.
I don't know the answer about the exit survey, but I can speak. I'm sorry, this is Megan Doyle, Deputy County Executive. And I can speak that on behalf of our employee engagement and well-being. In terms of our current employees, we do use Gallup, and we contract with Gallup to do as our external
polling
partner.
company, Gallup, yes.
Correct. And I'm going to pull this closer to me because I think that will be better. Is that better?
Great, much better.
Sorry. But, with Gallup, not only do we have sort of the external and employee confidentiality piece, we are able to break it down more granularly by department.
Yes.
And then we also are able to ask statistically validated survey questions that they ask their other organizations.
Right.
And also compare our answers with our employees across our sectors. So, for example, we can compare our hospital staff with other hospital staff. We can compare our county counsel's office with other legal firms, just to see, to get a better sense of the employee engagement and well-being while there are employees. And that's been pretty successful. We've been doing that since 2018. So we do have much better data about our current employees and what it takes when they're here as our employees. And then, where there are areas that are identified where employees are unhappy, whether they're unhappy, again, and we're pulling from Gallup's database of tested questions. So, but it is things like, there's someone at work that cares about me. And, I know what's expected of me at work. We're able to see which departments are, maybe ranking higher than other departments and have those conversations at like an executive management level. And also just starting this last fall, we also are engaging Gallup in what the action planning process, because Gallup has, with all their studies and all their database of information, come forward that 70% of employee satisfaction is your direct manager at work. So what we've been doing this past fall is really doubling down on using the Gallup model to have action planning conversations with managers and their teams. And at this point, we do have participation from all of our departments. Some of our departments further than others, but we identified basically every employee who supervises another employee and are really trying to provide them with the Gallup script and the Gallup tool to have the conversation that Gallup has identified as actually resulting in better employee engagement. So we will then get a chance when we do our next Gallup survey to see if this conversation and engaging in the steps that Gallup recommended based on our previous data that has an opportunity to raise our scores in terms of the employee engagement and well-being.
That's for the current employees. We're not using
Correct.
Gallup on exiting employees, all right?
Right.
Can we?
We can look into it.
Yeah, could you? Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
there's something you can bring back to FGOC to look into, having that as a possible additional ways, shortening the period from 60 days to whatever seems more reasonable, and external organization so that we could get more meaningful information. That's great. Second thing is, since we do have Gallup, do we have any way to track specific department or even manager that has significantly higher turnover rates throughout the county?
On the Gallup responses, we can get it down to the budget unit because that's the information we're able to provide to Gallup. So it's actually not the specific manager level unless you're dealing with a very small department, of which we have a few small departments. And we have a much higher participation rate on the Gallup survey overall. We still struggle with some departments. And part of it is where our workforce is, right? If you're in a patrol car, if you're in a correctional facility, you may not have access to a computer terminal
Right.
to just take it. So we are also working on how to do that instrument better. But just to circle back, I mean, we can get down further on that piece. But it is what we would be able to do in terms of the exit, applying it to the exit strategy. We'd have to look at that more and come back.
Great, thank you. James, is you like coming on?
I was just going to say, some of these questions expose real gaps that, in terms of data and information that we have at a central level. So, for example, we don't know centrally who any specific employee's day-to-day line level supervisor is. I mean, we know who approves their time card, right? But that's not necessarily the same person per se as the person who in a day-to-day interaction is their operational supervisor. And we don't have we don't have that information centrally. So that's just an example. And going back to some of the earlier questions from Supervisor Ellenberg, where there's certain pieces on the departmental side that are not stored in any manner centrally. So one of the things that we, I think, should have as an organization is more robust, centralized information so that we can actually do some of that type of analysis. Now, I will name that there's a tension there because departments often express frustration with the amount of stuff that they have to they have to report centrally. So, you know, there is that inherent tension because they have to then maintain that information. It has to be maintained in an updated manner, and it imposes kind of reporting-related burdens on them. So we want to, in an ideal world, identify those specific categories of things where we believe there's value in having it central and not things that are not. But in the absence of that central reporting, we're unable to see from a county executive standpoint some of what's going on in the organization. So that's just a piece of some of these questions, not all, but a piece of some of these questions and something that we're definitely cognizant of as we're looking at these things going forward.
Good. Yeah, obviously we need to find out the issues why causing individuals leaving our organization. And, you know, one thing I could tell you from looking at the list is benefits is the lowest reasons. People are not leaving here because they're not paid well enough. They are not because, I mean, pensions and systems like that, you just don't get in the outside world. We know that. So we know that our employees, and based on these surveys, that are well compensated. And if that's the case, those other items are not dollar and cents items that we really need to work on. And so I'm concerned that those are things that we could do better on. Number one. Number two is in terms of revealing problems and gaps that we talked about. I mean, do we have some, you know, probably 99% of our managers are good, but there's that 1% that might not be doing as great. So based on turnover, based on surveys, I'm hoping that we're able to review some of that so that action could be corrected so that we could improve the work environment. As you said, right, if you have one bad supervisor, and I don't mean to say the 5 supervisors, but like this work supervisor, right? Certainly could hurt the morale of the entire unit and even neighboring units as well. So I think those are issues that we need to do a better job identifying. I mean, so figuring out the unit is one thing, right? But also if there's any way we could go further down, because that's really a way of process improvement that we improve our workforce.
That's totally true. And the flip side is true as well. And one of the things that that having some of this data may show also are places where we're doing well. And I think sometimes there's a lot of anecdotal information. And I'll give you a real concrete example, and we've posted this online. You know, we have, the data shows a very, very, very low turnover rate among our nurses, for example. One of our largest classifications, very competitive job market. Very competitive job market, very important job, obviously, and the data shows actually quite a low percentage turnover rate, and so it's helpful to have that information too. So it's helpful on both ends, and you know, where we can then also recognize managers who are doing a real exceptional job too.
Exactly. No, that's definitely true. And then, if anything, I would say we need to do better on recognizing those successful stories and individuals to be.
Well, and that's one of the things the Gallup aggregate national data shows is one of the most meaningful things is recognizing people's good work, and that is extremely important for morale. And that's something that, you know, I think we can do more of as an organization to recognize those places where people are doing a really good job and otherwise feel invisible in doing that.
Exactly, that's right. The unsung heroes of our county, shall we say.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I think that's all the questions I have, and got motions except report.
So moved.
And I'll second that.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg
Yes.
and Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well. Thank you very much. All right, moving along to item number 14, which is the report from the Office of County Executive and Procurement Department relating to procurement transformation and countywide contracting. And I believe today we have our Deputy County Executive, Martha Wapinski, along with your team. Martha, I'll let you introduce your team. How's that?
Thank you very much for that. With me today is Matthew Hada, the Director of Procurement, and also MJ Fogelstrom, the Principal with the Office of Countywide Contract Management. For the last meeting of my career, I'm very happy to highlight this one especially. It's the great work of the staff at Procurement and the Office of Countywide Contract Management. As you know, we've been providing regular reports to this committee on key highlights. Within this one has a particular emphasis on vendor and CBO support, countywide compliance, and diverse and disadvantaged business enterprises. Now we're prepared to make a brief presentation, or we can go straight to questions given the hour.
Okay, I think we're ready for questions, right?
Sure.
Supervisor Ellenberg, would you
That's
please
fine with
proceed?
me. Thank you. And wow, Martha, it feels special to be part of your final official meeting. That's actually huge.
But she looks so relaxed.
Okay. She does look relaxed. I really appreciate the efforts to simplify external communications and to improve the newsletter engagement. How are we leveraging community groups like business associations, chambers of commerce, or any other groups to make sure that they know about opportunities?
Go ahead, MJ.
Good afternoon, Michael Fogelstrom with the Office of Countywide Contracting Management. So OCCM has a vendor outreach team that is fully engaged in reaching out to professional advocacy organizations.
Can you define professional advocacy organizations, please?
Sure. So it might be organizations like Minority Business Consortium or La Raza. There's a large distribution list that we maintain.
Could you share the list with the as an off agenda with the supervisors? Because all of them, by definition, are in each of our districts, and it's an opportunity for us to look and see who you're contacting with, if anybody's missing. Apologies for the interruption, but I'll include that as a motion for that off agenda.
No
Go
worries.
ahead.
That would be great. We may provide it to you in electronic format. It is tens of thousands of vendors.
Oh,
But
let me think that through.
Okay,
Yes,
I
for
don't-
sure, in an electronic format. It's thousands?
It is, yes. So this includes not only professional advocacy organizations, but also municipal chambers, individual vendors who are interested in doing business with the community. So this is the forum that we use to announce upcoming training opportunities, engagement opportunities, and other information.
Absolutely only electronic, and yes, something that we can just scroll through at our, and by our, I mean our staff's leisure to see who's included.
Sounds great, but we'd certainly love additional members to add to the distribution list.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And how do you evaluate, what kind of return you get on this thousands of messages that are sent out? What response rate, open rate do you get?
So that's great. Unfortunately, I don't have the report directly in front of me, but I do recall that the open rate and the click-through rates are increasing, certainly above the industry standard. So I know that there is engagement in those newsletters. Additional opportunities such as the Supplier Day, in which we connect vendors interested in doing business with the county with potential buyers here so they can learn about the department's needs.
Mm-hmm.
Those sell out sell out is the wrong term. Those certainly...
Fill up?
Yes, thank you. Fill up sometimes within hours. So we do know that vendors are reading those newsletters to engage in those opportunities.
And by what percentage or what number of small vendors do you think we're growing by each year?
That is a great question, and that is something that we are currently looking into, is trying to identify the number of vendors that we are both doing business with that identifies small businesses, as well as those who are interested in doing business with the county.
Yeah, thank you. I realize that there are plenty of services and products that the county needs in massive quantities. So it's going to be harder for smaller vendors or entrepreneurs. But I think there are a lot of opportunities for small, even micro businesses with products, with food, with other sorts of services or options for us that may really work in particular circumstances. And it's just the majority of our local businesses are very small, are women or minority owned. And I think that the more we can support them, the more we really are building vibrancy and economic stability in our county. So at any time, and I hope that you will reach out to the board offices as well to let us know when there are things that you want us to amplify in our districts, because we're all interested in this,
Absolutely.
I'm certain.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
if
for
I
the-
may, this is a semi-annual report, so we can bring back any relevant data in our next semi-annual report that answers some of the questions you raised.
I gotta wait 6 months for answers?
Yeah.
I don't love that. That seems like a long time. Will it take 6 months to put all of those together? The information about how many vendors we're adding each year, particularly small ones. Is that a 6-month ask?
We need to analyze the data set and get back to you, but we will certainly try to expedite this as
Okay.
quick as we can.
Very much appreciated. And I assume since the data set exists of your mailing list, that that's an easy link to send to us off agenda?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Martha.
Thank you. Do we have any public who would like to speak on this item?
We currently do not have any members of the public in chambers or on Zoom.
Sure, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I actually have a basic process question. Between contract management for the Office of County Contracting and the Department of Procurement, if you could maybe give a quick beginner's explanation of this, so I think our staff could better understand how this process works and how they work with each other. Try again.
There we go.
There we go. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Good afternoon, Supervisor. The biggest difference is operationally, the procurement department has the centralized divisions that actually administer the contracts and manage the contracts, both countywide master contracts as well as departmental contracts. The Office of OCCCM mainly looks at contract management from a policy and procedure basis, as well as an oversight in terms of compliance on those processes.
They do look at individual contracts. They look at the processes of contract management as a whole, is that the differences, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. No, thank you. That's helpful to understand. Yes, Martha, go ahead.
No, it looks like the county executive wants.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
And
ahead,
that-
James.
Yeah, and I would just remind the committee, we have this hybrid model for contracting in the county. So all of our goods and related non-professional services, contracting is centralized and run by the procurement department, but our professional services contracting is the responsibility of all of the different departments across the county organization. And that's where OCCM plays that policy and procedure oversight role, is in particular with respect to the decentralized professional services contracting that happens in every program and division across the organization.
Right, so they serve as an oversight of the decentralized individual departments' contract management, basically.
There's a policy oversight.
Policy, right,
yeah.
right, right. Got it. Okay, good. Thank you. That's very helpful to explain the difference. Second thing is I'm truly excited to see the various efforts. One is the Disadvantaged Business Rights program that we are having there. And then the other one, of course, is my favorite, is the sustainable purchasing, to make sure that we are buying green. Because as we have been saying, you got to put the money where your mouth is. And we could say all these sustainable practices, but, making sure that we actually do the same thing on our purchasing decision, I think is absolutely crucial. So much encouraging to see that we're doing that. And then finally, I see that this Amazon business project, we are talking about how there are ways that we might be able to do purchasing, not necessarily going through our contracted vendors. Is that what this is about? Is another way of finding resources so that we could get to our purchasing faster, maybe cheaper, and more options?
That's correct, Supervisor. I want to point out that the Amazon pilot program is currently on hold. It's primarily due to resources. Our P-card administrator, current administrator, recently retired. We do have a project manager that's on leave that was affiliated with that program as well. And also our budget deficit cost savings initiatives that we're looking at has had an impact. Our plan was to pilot this program with the county's executive office, and so this program is currently on hold. We do have countywide current independent Amazon membership programs. This program would be to have a countywide collective Amazon program for purchases for items other than those that are on current contracts.
Right, so this is only for items that is not contracted with vendors, then you could use this program. If otherwise, we are supposed to go back to our contract vendors first. That's the holds, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. All right, good. And that's all I have on my questions, and if no further questions, we'll take a motion.
Move approval to receive the report.
And we'll second it.
Vice
With
Chairperson.
the addition, I'm so sorry. With the additional direction regarding off-agenda information.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg
Yes.
and Chairperson Lee.
Yes, as well. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Martha. Really, thanks. And do come visit us. We have these hearings open, so come anytime.
But take a 60-day break first.
All right, item number 16 is to receive a report from Facilities and Fleet Department and Behavioral Health Services relating to behavioral health facility expansions, efforts, and progress.
Good afternoon, Keely. Dave Barry is walking up. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, Keith, go ahead. Supervisor Zonnberg.
First of all, congratulations. We've got an additional 11 subacute SNF beds completed ahead of schedule, correct?
Yes.
Like months ahead of schedule? That's awesome. Thank you. I'm really excited. I feel like I want to maybe I should have like a thermometer, like for fundraising that shows the dollars. We might do one for beds. What's up with the license at 650 South Bascom?
We had some good news earlier this week. I've been in communication directly with CDSS, California Department of Social Services. Initially, they had a challenge with the type of licensing that Momentum had applied for, and their general counsel or their counsel had to weigh in. That has been resolved earlier this week, and Momentum just has to submit some additional information, and then hopefully we can get a date for the walkthrough inspection.
Wouldn't that be nice? Thank you. I really appreciate the report that highlights the changes from the last time, as I had asked, and I don't have any additional asks. I'm really pleased with the format, so thank you both.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So as Ellenberg, you have taken that questions off my mouth about this issue of 650 South Bascom, because about 4 months ago, August, we were all there for the ribbon cutting. Walkthrough was great, and right now is still empty. So obviously that's unsad, and the fact that this kind of a kink is unfortunate. I do also want to thank my former supervisor here, Senator Dave Cortese, who did write a letter regarding this very issue with the state on the licensing issues. So I'm hoping that that certainly has helped in terms of expediting this issue. And so please keep us posted, whatever momentum needs to provide with Dave Minetta's crew, and let's make sure that this gets moving ASAP. Thank you. Otherwise, let's see, do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
We do not have anyone in chambers or on Zoom.
All right, okay. These are exciting news and key. Like to say, damn the torpedo, full speed ahead, or all speed forward, whatever Navy jargon I like to use. I know you being a former Army. So thank you very much. And let's take a motion.
Move approval of the report.
And I'll second it
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
And Chairperson Lee?
as well. All right. Moving to our actually final item number 17, receive monthly legislative report from the Office of Intergovernment Relations. And I believe we have our Deputy County Executive, David Campos, here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Lee, Vice Chair Ellenberg. Happy holidays to everyone. Glad to be the last item here today. We actually, on the agenda today, have 3 items, 2 of which are on the consent calendar. But I simply note that with the legislature in Sacramento out of session for the last couple of months, we have been doing a lot of work internally within the county to finalize our agenda for the next legislative session. And what you have on the consent are 2 documents. One is the work plan that lays out different strategies that we will follow to meet the mandate of being more present, more visible, more engaged. The second document are the legislative policy changes in the area of FGOC. And the last piece of this work for the next coming legislative session will be brought to you in January, when we will be presenting to the board specific legislative proposals that we want to move forward. Traditionally, we bring those to the board in December, but we have received a lot of input based on the work that we've done in the last year. And because of the complexity of some of the items, we also wanted to take more time to find the right author in Sacramento, and that's why we're coming to you in January. Online is Elaine Trin, who has been doing a lot of this work and who is not feeling well today, but she's going to help me with just one slide, if we can, that I just want to show you. Just some key dates to keep in mind for the upcoming legislative session. Elaine, if we can go to slide number 2. Just to note that the legislature will be reconvening on January 3rd. A few days later, on January 10th, the governor will be releasing his budget. And then another key date is January 19th, which is the date that if you have a 2-year bill, that's the date by which that bill has to get out of committee in the first house that it was introduced. Otherwise, it will die. And then for us, a big date, which is why we're working so hard to find the right author on these bills, is February 16th, which is the time by which we have to submit legislative proposals. Any bill has to be submitted at that time. And then just one note, as you may recall, this past session, we got about $3 million for a pilot on universal income from Senator Cortese, and out of that work, we are co-sponsoring his SB 333, which is trying to take that concept statewide and develop the opportunity for other jurisdictions to do the same. So that's where we are today. Like I said, we will be coming back to the committee, to the board in January for more specific, detailed proposals. And the last thing that I will note is that As you know, we develop our work plan. The Office of Communications and Public Affairs is also in the process of finalizing its work plan, and we're working very closely because of the interconnection of the work, making sure that as we're doing our legislative planning, that we're also emphasizing the communications piece. And so those will come, that work plan will come to you in the near future and early in the next coming year. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Ellenberg, any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, David and Elaine. I hope you feel better soon. And thank you, David, for making the point about the connection to communications, because literally that's what advocacy is. It's communicating, and the more tools you have and the more ways to present information and the more attractive and simple and appealing we can make our information and our asks, I think the more likely we are to be persuasive. If you're bringing back proposals in January to this committee, that's of course after the ledge session has started. Are we at any disadvantage? It sounds like you're already working with legislators. So when you come back to us in January, is it just an FYI of this is what we're doing, or is it something you need approval for?
We will need approval, but with some of the proposals, if I may, through the chair, we are already working with legislators to iron out the details of the specific proposal. And so by the time that it comes back to you in January, a lot of that will be worked out. It's just that we are not at a point right now where that work has been finalized because of the complexity of some of the issues.
So I'm not suggesting that I'm going to have a problem or an issue with any of them. I'm sure I'll be excited, but it is feeling backwards that a lot of work is being put in for something that the board hasn't approved yet. And in the event that the board says no to one or more of these proposals that has already then had significant movement by January, what does that mean?
And if I may, Vice Chair Ellenberg, the two items that I'm referring to are items where the board has already given us direction to pursue those options. One of them is agriculture worker housing.
Of course.
And the other one is mental health parity. So what we're working out is the details of what that looks like, which is why we
Got
haven't
it.
been
That
able
makes,
to.
thank you. That makes much more sense. Then in terms of anything new that you're bringing us, is that late to be bringing it to us in January when the legislature has already opened, or do you feel that legislators will still be open to new bills later in January?
We are in communications with legislators, and because they have until February 19th, we feel that we're actually, the timing, it actually works out pretty well for us.
Excellent. Answered all my questions. Thank you, David.
And just to kind of second what David was saying, the categories where we're looking at initiatives fall within those priority areas that are in the work plan and that have been discussed extensively with the board in different areas. So the other set of places where probably more through the budget process we'll be making a lot of pushes related to the unfunded mandates and the fiscal considerations, which we've discussed very much with the board, and there's very clear board direction to be pursuing those efforts.
Excellent. I look forward to supporting the work here and in Sacramento.
And the other point that I wanted to just note is that another set of proposals that we will be bringing as part of our presentation in January has to do with budget requests. As you know, we submitted 4 different budget requests last year and have 2 that were successful. And so we're in the process of waiting for those requests from departments. And they have until December 31st to submit those, which is actually much earlier than that has happened before. So we're happy to do that. And then the last thing that I would say is simply, and we will be presenting at the next Federal Affairs Task Force, there's also work that's being done at the federal level, which, is in a different track, but, in their its own set of challenges. But with that, grateful to all the departments that have been very engaged in this process and have given us a lot of feedback And of course, at the end of the day, as the county executive said, our priorities have focused on the actions that the board has already taken and the items that you have already prioritized.
Okay, do we have any speaker on this item?
We do not have members in chambers or on Zoom.
Very good. I think all speakers are already taking vacation, clearly. So, Supervisor Ellenberg, may I have a motion to receive report?
So moved.
And I'll go ahead and second that.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
And Chairperson Lee?
Yes, as well. So before we adjourn today, I just want to thank all our staff for your amazing support during these FGOC committee meetings. And of course, want to wish everybody and your family should have a very happy, safe, and peaceful holiday. And we look forward to seeing you in the new year. With that, this meeting is now adjourned to January 17th, 2024 at 10 a.m.
Boom.
Boom. Thank you.